What's up, heathens? How y'all doing? I'm the Godless engineer, and I critically analyze apologist claims to give you the best arguments and information so that you can stand up and use your voice. Tonight, we're going to be taking a look at a video from Friar over there on Breaking in the Habit. He has 5 reasons as to why people leave religion and become atheists. Trust me, they're not good reasons necessarily. This is obviously coming from somebody who's looking at deconversion from his own faith, but also other denominations of his faith through a religious lens. So we need to keep that in mind. If you want to fuck around and find out why you may have become an atheist, then please stay tuned. What would you say to Friar Tuck, honey? You would just say fuck off anytime he speaks. Fuck off. Fuck off. Well, you know, this is why atheists become atheists. Oh, fuck off, motherfucker. Go and make your goddamn beer and sell it to Robin Hood. Friar Tuck. Here is, I forget his name. That's why I call him Friar Tuck. He's a Franciscan friar. He runs the Breaking in the Habit YouTube channel where he discusses a lot of Catholicism type of content. And so he's apparently cracked the 5 reasons why people become atheists. Now, if I had to give a reason why people have left religion and become an atheist, is due to a lack of evidence. It's really just one reason. They start re-examining what they believe and why they believe it. They find out that there's little to no evidence for why they should believe in a God, and therefore they don't believe in a God. I feel like those are the main components of becoming an atheist, and I feel like the lack of evidence is the thing that should be focused on. Of course, he's not going to see it as a lack of evidence. He thinks that there's plenty of evidence for a God, but we're going to see what he blames the people leaving religion. We're going to see what he blames, the topics that he blames for that.
If you've been a Christian longer than a minute, you are probably painfully aware of the fact that faith in much of the Western world is in a downward trend. Over the past decade, study after study has revealed a sharp decline in religious affiliation, church attendance, and belief in God, while the number of people identifying as having no religion has grown rapidly.
There is a sharp decline in religious attendance and religious affiliation. Could this be because of whatever he's going to say tonight? Maybe, but I feel like it's more about the fact that the public conversation over religion has reached far more people than it used to in the past. I know, at least for me, growing up here in the South, it was never really talked about, like questioning religion or questioning whether or not God exists. Everybody just assumed God exists, and then we just didn't talk about it. And so nobody really questioned it. But now with the advent of, more connectivity through the internet and through social media, the conversation about whether or not God exists and the evidence that we have for God is quite pervasive throughout our societies, not just the United States society, but also the global society. Many more people, especially here in the United States, being exposed to the idea that God maybe doesn't exist and looking at the arguments for that, as well as religious people being pretty poor examples for, I guess, newer Christians or this newer generation to really look at as far as model and everything. I feel like those are bigger or more influential topics to talk about rather than what he is going to be talking about here. Is religious affiliation on the decline? Yes. Is that a good thing? I feel like it is. I feel like people are starting to reconsider these long-standing beliefs and are coming away not being convinced that a God does exist.
Why is this the case? Well, it's complicated. Not a mystery, but it's complicated. Some of the problem is definitely with Christians ourselves. If you're interested in an introspective look at what we're doing to drive people away, check out part 2 of this series here. Otherwise, what I'd like to look at in this video are the outside forces causing people to become atheists. Here are the 5 biggest threats to faith and what we can do to respond to each.
Oh no! Not scientific materialism, thinking that this real shit that exists in reality is the only things that we can know exist. That's a bad thing. Also, fuck science. All that trying to comport with reality and stuff, trying to describe reality as it exists. Fuck that shit, right?
Number 1, scientific materialism. Have you ever seen God? Felt a soul? Discovered any evidence for spiritual beings or forces?
No, there's not been any kind of evidence that actually says that this is real. Souls, we haven't been able to find any kind of empirical evidence that souls actually exist. In fact, there's a whole topic area called the mind-body problem that is being debated in like religious communities and communities that are arguing against the religious communities about the mind-body problem. From all that we can tell, our bodies flow with energy and our brains are wired in a particular way. And if you change that wiring, then our personalities change. Our soul changes. And when we die, there's nothing to indicate that our soul continues on. Our energy is released out into the I was going to say ether, but I was using that very hyperbolically. It's released out into the universe, and it, is just part of the universe. Does that mean that energy is very specific to us and it contains our essence? I don't see that there's any indication that the energy that's flowing through us right now has any bit of our personality in it. Our personality is contained in our brains. And as soon as the energy stops flowing through our brains, then there goes our personality, there goes our consciousness. That goes everything. There's no empirical evidence for any of the topics that he listed, so therefore there's no reason for us to believe that they exist.
Chances are the answer is no, which has led many in the modern world to conclude that there is nothing to life but the physical world. For materialists, as they're called, we are nothing more than a collection of cells, a series of firing neurons giving the illusion of consciousness, but ultimately just bags of flesh.
I mean, that's a really reductionist kind of way of viewing it. Like, yeah, in the grand scheme of things, like objectively outside of human emotion and human worldviews, are we bags of flesh with energy running through them that operate in the ways that we do? Sure. You can look at it from a very naturalistic kind of way. I prefer to look at human society and humanity in general from a very human perspective, in that I place value on other people in our society. I place value on other people in my life in general. It's all about a matter of perspective. Him reducing it to that and proclaiming that atheists view it this way is just a bit ridiculous, because he's not an atheist himself and he can't tell us how we view ourselves or humanity in general. He's just making shit up to make us look bad in this situation. That doesn't mean that I'm denying that we're quote unquote bags of flesh that are just operating or whatever. From an outside perspective, sure, you could view it that way, but that's not how we view ourselves as human beings. And so this is kind of a fallacy of like an equivocation almost, because he's trying to equivocate some objective outside perspective to our perspective, like a human perspective. And so he's mixing up those different viewpoints as if they are the same thing, but they're not.
The material world is all there is. As science has progressed over the years, this has become more and more popular. Emotions can be reduced to chemical imbalances, miracles to natural phenomena.
Well, yes, all of those things are, like, emotions are chemicals, not imbalances necessarily. Like, I suffer from clinical depression. That's a chemical imbalance. I also suffer from diabetes. That's also a chemical imbalance. To suggest that our emotions are viewed by us as being reduced to just chemical reactions, I feel like is totally not taking our own perspectives into account here, because while, yes, emotions are caused by chemical reactions, and how our brains are configured factor deeply into the emotional reactions that we have. Our emotional reactions are very personal to us, and we honestly recognize how those things make us feel. So it's a bit more than a chemical reaction, but at the core of it, they are chemical reactions, and there's nothing wrong with admitting that.
While there are still some things that science can't explain, proponents of this idea say that it's just a matter of time. Since all there is matter, we'll eventually be able to figure it all out. But what about one's conscience? What about a sense of right and wrong?
Right. Consciousness is an emergent property of complex central nervous systems. We see this in other animals that exist out there. We see rudimentary versions of consciousness, and we see full-blown examples of consciousness. It's not specific to us. It's not unique to human beings, and it can happen in other organisms. So there's that. And him acting like human beings are special in this kind of way seems to impart some kind of magical aspect onto humans, as if we're not just animals ourselves. We are animals ourselves. We just experience the world differently than other animals do. We have higher functioning brains, higher functioning central nervous systems that allow us to experience the world in different ways. Him making it seem like we're magical fucking beings does not actually mean that we are magical fucking beings.
If you take this idea to its logical conclusion, there is no free will because everything is already determined by our brain chemistry.
I mean, I agree. We have a faux version of free will, not like an absolute version of free will. So I would agree with that. We have freedom of choice would be a more accurate description of what I would consider what we have. The freedom to choose between the options that present to us, and not everybody has the same options that are presented to them for any one particular decision that they make. He also mentioned morality here. Morality is a subjective in nature. Like everything that we use to describe morality is subjective by the very words that we use. I mean, it's all very subjective, all very personal to a person. Now, that doesn't mean that we can't share moral values in a society. I think that that is one of the key components to a society, is a shared moral foundation. We all share a moral foundation. That's why in a society we can agree that like taking pop shots at a political candidate is horrible and wrong and you shouldn't fucking do it no matter what. No matter how much you hate the person, don't fucking do it. Like, we can all agree about that because we all exist within the same society and we all think that that's wrong, right?
Which means that no choice is any better than any other because choice itself is an illusion. Hitler wasn't bad, it was just his brain chemistry. You're not responsible for anything you do, you're just a collection of complex cells.
You notice how he's added on to his whole argument here in this idea that because free will doesn't exist, therefore we're not responsible for our actions. We are still responsible for our actions. We still have the freedom to choose whether or not to do whatever action we want to do. It doesn't absolve us from responsibility for our actions. It just means that we don't have total and absolute control over our actions like he wants us to believe. He's adding a lot of ad hoc assumptions onto not only the atheist position, but just the position that free will doesn't exist as far as his understanding of free will.
This is absurd. For people of faith, we must stress the individuality of the human person, our thoughts, hopes, dreams, attractions, choices, everything that points to our uniqueness and our freedom to make decisions. When we do this, we show that we are more than just material, that there is something about us that can't be measured or predicted.
I don't see how any of this makes us magical, which is what he's arguing for. He's like, oh, all of this means that we're more than the material. Well, it's more than the material. That would be the supernatural. By definition, it's more than the material world, which is defined by Christians or by anybody as being supernatural or beyond nature. Saying that means that you're introducing magic into your hypothesis here, and we just simply don't have any evidence of magic. Saying that people are unique and they have their own decision-making skills is not a magical concept. It's just that's how complex central nervous systems work. That's an emergent property of central nervous system. So this doesn't actually work the way that he wants it to.
We have a conscience. We have a soul. We have something that animates us beyond the physical world, drawing our attention to a reality beyond the physical world. Even though we can't prove it, we know that there is something spiritual about our existence.
Let's see. What is it that Aaron says? If you can't show it, then you don't know it. If you can't show that these things exist, like magic exists or anything else like that, then you can't say that you do know those things. So the very fact that you just have a feeling means that you have a chemical reaction that is telling you that these things are true. That doesn't actually make things true. Being able to objectively show that these things are true in reality, regardless of your personal experience, is the thing that should convince people. And if you can't show that, then you don't know that.
Number 2, rationalism.
Oh no! Not rationalism! Being rational as fuck is bad! Obviously, for Christians, being rational is bad! Rationalism can fuck off when we're talking about magic. The magical Jew that got put on a stick, and then that's how God absolved us of sin. Obviously, nobody wants rationalism to be factored into this particular equation.
If materialism is a world defined by science alone, rationalism is a world defined by math and logic alone. Because the senses, emotions, and conventions can all be flawed, they cannot be trusted.
I don't think that's the definition of rationalism. Let's define rational. Apparently, according to KC, the Friar Tuck's wardrobe choice precludes him from talking about rationality. What's the neck flap? I mean, it's a traditional friar garb. It's fucking stupid. I agree. Do you want on the mic? Rational is based on or in accordance with reason or logic. So being rational just simply means that whatever arguments or the reasons why you believe certain things is in accordance with reason and is logically sound, I would guess is the thing. Let's see. Let's define reason. The power of the mind to think, understand, and form judgments by process of logic. To think, understand, and form judgments by process of logic. A cause, explanation, or justification for an action or event. I'm trying to look for the philosophy. Normally they categorize them like logic, a premise of an argument in support of a belief, especially a minor premise when given after the conclusion. Yeah, so I mean basically reason or being reasonable or being in accordance with, hold on, let me get back to the definition here. Being in accordance with reason seems to be like you have a justified reason for believing in something. And I'm not saying that religious people don't have reasons for believing in something, but if you're going to have a justified reason for believing in something, I would hope that that reason is based in evidence. If you don't have something that's based in evidence, then I feel like you are being unreasonable. So as far as rationality goes, I feel like you're being rational if you have a justified reason to believe in something and you have a logically sound argument for believing in something. And I feel like maybe not on the spot, but if given the opportunity, I could probably provide logically sound arguments for my positions, as well as well-reasoned arguments for my positions. I'm not saying that Christians can't do the same, but I would say that I would probably view their logically sound arguments and their well-reasoned arguments as not being well-reasoned or logically sound. They may believe that they are being logically sound or well-reasoned, but that doesn't mean that they are. I feel like a prime component to all of this is whether or not you have evidence to support your conclusions.
There is no truth that can surpass pure human reason. As with materialism, there is some truth to this. Who's going to argue against science? Who's going to argue against rationality? We don't want to be erratic beings guided solely by emotions or intuitions. What do the numbers say? What is logical? These are not bad questions to ask.
Well, I mean, I feel like you can be emotional about things and you can have logically sound reasons for being emotional. I don't think that you should deny your emotions or anything or be this primarily analytical kind of being. I feel like emotions are what contribute to the human experience. I feel like exploring your emotions, really feeling your emotions, contributes to the overall experience of being a human or having a human perspective. I think that factors in greatly. So it's not just purely about being analytical about things, but I feel like you need to be rational. I feel like it's mentally healthy to be rational. And KC will tell you that I am regularly irrational about certain things. I feel like I know that I am. Trying to rebase yourself into a more rational position can be difficult on occasion, but I feel like rebasing yourself into a rational position is the better outcome. Like being more rational is better in general. And I think that everybody should be more rational about things.
And yet, we all know that what draws us to a beautiful sunset is not that it is rational. We fall in love and get married not because we've made calculations and can logically prove through some theorem that love is real. No. Life's greatest pleasures, what brings us the most meaning, come not from pure logic, but from beauty and love.
So what KC was saying that she doesn't want to get on the mic and say is that basically while we're not analytical about people that we love. There are ways in which we can know whether or not we love somebody, or that we care about somebody, or that, we can quantify how much we care and love about somebody. And there's ways that we can know that somebody cares and loves about us, and we can quantify those ways. Just because we can quantify it doesn't detract from the emotional aspect of these things. The emotional aspect of these things is very much part of the perspective. It's a good way to be rational about your decisions, to actually quantify whether or not you should feel this way. I mean, there are times when people feel like beyond all of the evidence they should do a certain thing. Sometimes that works out, sometimes it doesn't. Probably most of the time it doesn't. But what I'm saying is that it's not purely analytical. Atheists don't see it as purely analytical or quantifiable, and that's how they make their decisions, in a cold vacuum. That's just not simply how atheists work, and presenting atheists as doing this is just misrepresenting your opposition and creating a straw man.
From art, history, music, poetry, literature, and yes, faith. And so the way that we combat the rationalist is not with reasoned arguments or debate. It's not to play their game with their rules. We must break them out of their isolated worldview to encounter sacred spaces, places that provoke a sense of awe and wonder, that point to something beyond anything that can be explained.
I'm not trying to detract from the awe and wonder, but awe and wonder is just a chemical reaction that's happening in your brain. I think that those are important things. Those are important experiences to have. Like, I remember experiencing awe and wonder when I was in Rome, and I was standing atop this very tall building, looking out across Rome and seeing all of the history that exists between the modern history and the ancient history that's mixed into the culture. Like, that was awe and wonder that I was experiencing in that moment. And that's an important human experience to really feel and cherish, right? Like that's a good thing to do. But at the same time, the reason why I was feeling that was very specific to myself. It was very specific to the place that I was in, and it was very specific to my own brain chemistry. And I shouldn't judge other people for not feeling that when standing in that exact spot. That's all that we're saying, that we have personal experiences, and that those experiences don't necessarily relate to the larger or the reality that we exist within. These experiences that we have are not magical, but chemical, specifying that these are chemical reactions that are happening, and these are chemical reasons why we're feeling the way that we feel, does not detract from the fact that we feel the way that we feel when we experience awe and wonder.
As Blaise Pascal once said, "The heart has its reasons, which reason knows nothing of." We know the truth not only by reason, but by the heart. While it's true that our emotions and intuition can't always be trusted, there is no reason to throw it away completely.
Atheists don't advocate for throwing away your emotions completely, or being purely analytical in your analysis, I guess, of situations that you're put in. Having your own feelings and feeling what you're feeling and everything like that, that's just about being mentally healthy. The way that he's presenting atheists as being cold, calculated, and analytical is just simply not how humans work in general. Does that mean that people aren't that way? No, there are people that are that way, but that's how they are. They are cold, analytical, and all this other stuff. That doesn't detract from the human experience of other people that experience it in different ways. We're just honest enough to say people experience things in different ways, and we need to respect that people don't always experience the same things in the same situations.
Remember the feeling of seeing your first child. Let yourself be overwhelmed with falling in love. Look at the stars with immense wonder, and don't try to analyze why. There's something that speaks to us beyond pure rationality, and it is the truth.
Number 3, secularism. So, I mean, I agree with what he finished up with there, that, people need to feel their feelings. That's part of the human experience. Him presenting it as if atheists don't view the world that way is just simply a straw man. And that's not how we view the world, or at least that's not how I view the world. Could that be how some people view the world? Sure. But that doesn't detract from how I personally experience the world. We heavily emphasize how people experience the world. In fact, we put a paramount importance on how people experience the world, and we try to keep that in mind when we're being, a bit judgmental about other people. We try to realize that my experience doesn't dictate what they experience, and it's all about this social consciousness, being socially aware that other people experience things in different ways. That's what that's about. I feel like the Christian argument here, as far as what we just covered, is that everybody should feel the exact same way as every other Christian feels for this particular situation. That's just simply not how people act. And maybe it's because he's built all this upon a straw man or whatever, but he seems to just not simply understand the atheist position at all.
Number 3. Secularism. No doubt you've heard the word secular used by religious people a lot, complaining about a secular world, secular music, secular culture. While often used to denote anything hostile towards religion, what we see in this trend, and what is so dangerous, is something that is solely of this world, pointing to this current age alone.
I feel like admitting that, this is our only life, and we should focus on our only life and make the most out of our only life. I feel like that's a very positive message. Like, hey, the life that you're living right now is the only life that you're technically afforded, so you should make the most out of your life. I feel like that's a very uplifting and positive message to people. Like, live your life, dude. Do what you want to do. Don't wait for some mysterious afterlife that may or may not come after you die. Don't wait for that. Do what you want to do now. Put yourself first before any kind of magical fucking Zeus wielding, lightning wielding motherfucker. I'm not saying that you should put yourself first before other people or anything like that. I'm saying that you should focus on the human experience before you ever think about some magical fuck that may or may not exist in the sky.
An offshoot of materialism, secularism can see nothing beyond the reality in which we live. This world that we live in, this temporality, is all that exists. There is no heaven or hell, no alternate realms, nothing to hope for beyond this life.
So this is a little bit more absolute than most atheists put out there. Like, what we would say is, we don't know that those things exist, so therefore you shouldn't bank your life on those things existing. That's what we actually say. He's trying to make it out to be like atheists are like, those things definitely don't exist, therefore you don't need to worry about them. And it's a little bit of a nuanced position, but I feel like saying there's no evidence for these things, so there's no reason that you should be concerned with them, is different than saying these things don't exist, do not do this. Like, it's a slight change in position there, but the way that he's presenting it is effectively a straw man.
It is why the secularist is often so invested in politics and is constantly fighting off despair.
Well, yeah, we're invested in politics because that's how we're governed. I care about how we're fucking governed. I guess this guy doesn't care about how he's governed because he's governed by the Catholic Church, and that just doesn't change. Like, as far as his perspective goes, it doesn't change. Obviously it changes, but from his perspective, it doesn't change. I care about politics because I care about how I'm governed. I don't want my son to be forced to memorize the 10 Commandments from the Bible. I don't want my son or myself to have to, acknowledge a God that we don't believe exists just because we live in a certain country. Those are not things that I want to happen, so therefore I'm involved in how I'm governed. To suggest that Christians shouldn't be cared about how they're governed is ridiculous, because I feel like everybody, regardless of your religion, should care about how you're governed.
If this is the only world, we must do everything to make this world perfect, everything to save ourselves. Unfortunately, this is a problem that has begun to slip even into Christianity. In certain forms of liberation theology on the left and Christian nationalism on the right, faithful people lose sight of heaven and invest themselves entirely in fixing this world.
I feel like fixing the world that we have to live in for 80 to 90 years, I feel like that's an important thing. If you don't feel like it's important, that's fucking fine. Go back to your Friar temple or whatever in the fuck you go. Monastery? They live in monasteries or something. Go back to your fucking monastery and just do whatever in the fuck. But like, the rest of us live in the real world, okay?
Politics becomes their religion, for what else is there? Of course, there is so much more than this world. What we experience in this life is but a foretaste of the life to come. While God's presence is certainly found in this world, and we must do what we can to be good stewards of his gifts, there is something that will inevitably unsettle us about the world. Something that should make us feel like it is not our true home.
Our true home? I get hoping for something better, but at the same time, if you're not going to do anything to make your present situation better, then, I feel like you just end up with what you end up with. There's obviously no evidence for life after this life or anything like that. Like, there's just simply no evidence for any of that. I don't understand why banking on something that you don't know existing is a better option than making things that you know exist better, right? Like, you know that our society exists. You know that the society you exist within exists. Why not make that reality better for you or for other people? I don't understand this just like throwing up your hands and being like, well, fuck it. I'll just wait until the next life. What next life? What evidence do you have that there even is a next life? You don't? Well, I guess I shouldn't fucking bank on that.
No matter how hard we work, it will never be what we truly desire. This, right here, is where we must lead people. We must draw out people's dissatisfaction with the world, their deep desire for something more. Remind them of the futility of their work, that we will eventually die, and that this world will fade away with no memory of us. Deep down, we know that this is wrong.
I feel like I know that it's wrong that nobody will remember us. There's obviously certain people in the past that have been remembered now. There's Einstein that's been remembered now, Oppenheimer, especially since the movie came out. There's so many people that have technically lived on past their own lifetime through the memories of others and through our collective memory as a society, through our own history. So suggesting that, you just only exist within the time that you exist now, I feel like that's just totally taking it out of context. And like, I'm making videos right now where they will outlive myself, probably. They will outlive my earthly existence and may affect other people in the future after I die. That could happen. And if that does happen, I'm so happy that it did. I've had people tell me that I've positively affected their lives in various ways. So, like, that means so much more to me that I've bettered their lives in the only life that they know than promising somebody something that could or could not exist. Like, leaving it up to chance, like, fucking flipping a quarter as to whether or not it exists. I don't feel like that's affecting their lives positively. That's just like, oh, don't worry about the bad shit that's going on now. Wait until you die. That's kind of morbid, isn't it? Like, it's morbid to be like, oh, hey, wait till you die. It'll get better. You fucking serious there, Friar Tuck?
Deep down, there is a longing in each one of us for eternity. Number 4, relativism. You do you, whatever makes you happy.
That's not what atheists say.
Well, that's just my truth. Mantras of a generation, mantras of a world defined by relativism, truth that is purely subjective.
Atheists don't say truth is truly relative or subjective. There are certain things that are subjective, like morality. Morality is subjective. I don't think that, like, how reality exists is subjective. I think that through our human experience, we are only afforded so much understanding about our reality. And that really depends on at what point in time you're really gauging that. Because, like, right now, we definitely know more about reality than we knew 1,000 years ago, right? It really kind of depends on at what point in time you're gauging this metric that he's talking about here. So relativism is really only relevant when we're talking about certain topics and not about reality itself. Reality itself would be absolute, but can we ever really know that we've obtained this absolute knowledge about reality? I don't think that we can. I don't think that any particular piece of knowledge that we have can be solidly identified as the absolute true fact about reality. But that's because we're limited by our human existence, our human perception of reality. That's just a limitation that we have to work through, and that's what science seeks to overcome, is this human perception of reality. It seeks to remove the relative relative nature of human perception and put it in more of a perspective of an objective observer, somebody that's outside of humanity. That's what science seeks to do, is to describe reality as it exists, not reality as we experience it through our own limited human experience. The relativism is just a straw man argument yet again.
The opposite of rationalism, relativism posits that all truth is defined not by facts or logic, but by the feelings and experiences of each individual.
That's not exactly true. Like I said, it's very specific to the topic you're talking about. Morality, relative. How reality works, that's not relative.
Something may be true for one person, but not for another. For years, Pope Benedict XVI warned against the dangers of relativism, but even he could not have predicted how quickly it would pull at the very fabric of our society.
Pope Benedict XVI, is that Rothensberger or whatever, the Sith Lord? Yes, that's the Pope Benedict XVI, is the Sith Lord. Just so that everybody understands what he's talking about here. The Sith Lord is the one that he's saying was right about relativism. Sure, let's listen to the Sith Lord.
In so much of our world today, facts have no worth. Logic is irrelevant. There appears to be nothing that we can agree on and no way to come to consensus.
So, wait a second. I feel like he's making two different arguments here, because earlier he was like, atheists and non-religious people, they just see the world through analytical, logical lens. If they don't have logic to back up their logic and evidence and all that to back it up, then they don't believe it. But now he's like, they forego logic. They forego all of this shit. And they become unreasonable. They forego rationality. Like, you need to pick a fucking lane there, Friar Tuck.
But surely no one can actually believe in relativism. There is a world with definitive forces and laws, with measurable experiences and matter, things that are one thing and not another.
And for the appropriate context, we defer to relativism. In the appropriate context, we defer to this absolute nature of reality. Like physics, that's our description of reality, so it can change, but physics is hoping to describe reality as it operates, which is objective and outside human experience and therefore not relative. He's totally ignoring how the context in which we are talking factors into whether or not it's absolute, as in how reality works, versus our feelings and how we feel about a certain topic.
Ignorance may lead us to different conclusions, but there are right and wrong answers, things that are the way they are regardless of perspective.
I mean, I would agree that there is objective truth to reality, but I feel like we will never know this objective truth because there's no way through our own human experience that we can know that something is objectively and absolutely true. But we could do our best to try to discern what those absolute truths are, and we may change how we understand our reality. But that shouldn't detract from the fact that what we're trying to do is describe reality as it exists.
And if this is true, if there is only one thing that is objective, how did it come to be that way? Why is there something rather than nothing, and why is it intelligible at all?
So it's intelligible at all because we make it intelligible. Any universe that would come into existence would be able to be understood. Like it would have, geometries and all this other stuff, and we could discern our experience if we're living in it. None of this is actually of consequence to the atheist perspective. It's only a problem to religious people who think that magic exists.
The person of faith, quite obviously, will point to God, objective being itself. There is something that created all that is and knows all that is. We may have our own individual perspectives and experiences of the created reality, but there is but one objective created reality because there is but one objective creator being.
To suggest that atheists deny that there is an absolute reality that exists would be a straw man, because I know, at least for me, I accept that there is an absolute reality that exists. It operates the way that it operates and everything like that. But I at least can admit that my own personal human experience limits my knowledge of reality, and I can only describe reality as I experience it or as I have evidence for it. So would I be able to say absolutely this is how reality works in this one particular aspect? I can't know that because I don't know that reality. He inserts this magical being that knows absolute reality and claims that this being exists without any evidence that the being does exist. So is that a reasonable position position to hold. I feel like anybody can create some magical being in that way and claim that they know the objective and absolute nature of reality, whether or not that actually comports with how reality operates. So that's not a good measure for knowing how reality operates. I prefer to go with evidence and what I can show to be true outside of my own experience. We don't have that for God.
And finally, number 5, nihilism. If there is one thing spreading through Gen Z like wildfire, it's this: hopelessness, apathy, distrust. We're worse off than the generation before us.
I don't see that as nihilism. I mean, I feel like that's the opposite of nihilism. Like you're concerned about the state of affairs. Like nihilism would be like nothing matters, so I don't care about anything. Like that's what I feel like how they view nihilism, admitting that, oh, shit's worse now than it was, 20, 30 years ago. Shit is just worse. Like that's caring about your position. Like that's caring about your state, the state of humanity. Like that's not caring. You wouldn't be writing the article if you didn't fucking care. I mean, I feel like this is just an example of how he doesn't understand nihilism.
And it's only going to get worse. There's nothing we can do. The nihilist gives in to the idea that there is no point to anything and that resistance is futile.
I'm sorry, was that not what he was arguing for earlier when he was shitting on people caring about society and like how society is run? Did he not say that? I don't know if you were paying attention there, hon. But I mean, earlier he was like, oh, people care way too much about politics and our society and everything like that. And now he's like, but nihilism, nobody fucking cares anymore. Pick a fucking lane, Friar Tuck. Like it's either we don't care or we do care. You can't do both at the exact same time. These are things that are antithetical to each other. You can't hold both positions at once, okay? So it's either we don't care about shit or we do care about shit. Please make a decision as to which one we're supposed to fucking care about. Oh my God. Why does he sit there and think that we're stupid enough to think that all of these things are coexistent in one group or one demographic of people? Now, does that mean that I think that nihilism doesn't exist within atheism? Sure, there are nihilists that exist within atheism, but that doesn't mean that these are like the reasons why people are leaving Christianity. Like nihilism, like the whole idea that nothing matters is not causing people to leave Christianity. In fact, is this not a selling point of Christianity? This whole, I feel like he's made that argument this entire time, is that like, oh, why would you care about current political crises? Or why would you care about, your current society when we have something after this life to look forward to? That's what we should be focused on. Is that not the same thing as saying, why care about what's happening now? None of this matters. None of this matters. And then the Christian adds, because after this life, we're going to get this perfect existence, right? So it kind of seems like he's advocating for nihilism, but also portraying nihilism as a reason why people are leaving. But nihilism to me seems to be a major selling point for Christianity. None of this matters because you're going to go to heaven. Why the fuck is he making this list if he's just going to contradict himself one point after another?
Why try? And in one sense, you can probably see why. They grew up after 9/11. They've seen 2 economic crashes and a global pandemic. Their formative years have been during the most divisive time in American history. They were basically raised on Vine and TikTok and have been using it as a coping mechanism to deal with the bleakness of our world.
Honestly, Vine went out before my son even knew what Vine was, and he doesn't watch TikTok. He watches YouTube Shorts. And also we're banning TikTok. So, I mean, I feel like the current political strife is a negative, but at the same time, it's not because like we don't care. The fact that there is political strife in the country is because we fucking care.
But cope, they have not. Because we all know that social media can be as much an echo chamber as anything else, perpetuating what we want to hear and shielding us from alternative narratives.
Says the Christian. Yes, I definitely agree that could be it. It's up to you, the person, to be able to expose yourself to different ideas, be open to different ideas, and to change your worldview based on new information. Christians typically don't want to do that.
Like the fact that we are technically in the most peaceful time in human history. Children have never been safer from disease.
I mean, depending on where you live, if you fucking live in Idaho, instead of getting insulin, you're going to get a prayer that God will, protect your pancreas or some shit. Or as most recently denoted in fucking Australia, there are people there too that would rather pray for their 14-year-old, maybe an 8-year-old daughter for God to cure her diabetes rather than give her fucking insulin. It kind of depends on what community you're in there, Friar Tuck. I mean, if you're in a community that primarily bases all of its thought and knowledge and hope and dreams and all that kind of shit on God, then no, you're not going to be living in the best time ever. You're going to be living in like the fucking 1800s or some kind of fucking shit. But, oh yes, there's not conquistadors that are forcing religion on people everywhere. So therefore it must be better than any time in history. That's a fucking low bar to set there for our talk.
Poverty is at an all-time low. Literacy an all-time high. In so many ways, the world is filled with goodness and progress.
Despite Christianity's efforts to prevent people from being able to read and all this other stuff, and Christians, especially here in the United States, from preventing impoverished people from being able to pull themselves out of poverty. It's just the cultural awareness of this motherfucker is just at an 11.
As Christians, it can be easy to look at this world with frustration, but we can never give in to despair. This place may not be heaven, but Jesus himself says that the kingdom of heaven is at hand. Everywhere we look, the presence of God is readily available for those who wish to see.
Magical Jew on a stick says a thing. Okay, nice story, bro, but I just I don't believe it. You have a nice story. You believe in that story. That's good for you. But the rest of us who don't want to live in a dystopia nightmare, the rest of us just would rather not bank on the magical Jew on a stick. Okay?
Our lives may not make the difference we want them to make, but they do make a difference, and there is a purpose to our lives, even in the absurd parts. If we want to break people out of this nihilistic thinking, we must point them to the cross, the sign that God loves us so much that he would enter this world to die for us.
Correct me if I'm wrong, hun. Christians regularly de-emphasize this life, like things that you accomplish in this life and all that kind of stuff. They de-emphasize that for the afterlife, like what you will attain by sucking Jesus' dick. They emphasize that. So how does this combat nihilism? You're sitting there saying, oh, this life doesn't matter, but believe in Jesus so this life will matter. What are you talking about here? I really don't understand like the logic here, because you're saying that this life doesn't matter, but at the same time it does matter, and that's because you suck Jesus' dick. Like, I don't understand how this is supposed to make sense.
To save us from darkness, to save us from sin, to save us from meaninglessness. It is from this heroic act of self-sacrifice that death itself is conquered, and we are shown that even the most despairing of lives can be redeemed.
Oh, you mean the thing that God could have just twiggled his dick for in order to remove, like this whole sin thing? Like he could have literally just changed his mind about sin, but yet no, he had to sacrifice a motherfucker in order to change his mind. That's what you're leading off with here? That is your big argument for why we need Jesus and God and to be Christian, is because unless God killed a motherfucker, that he couldn't have changed his mind otherwise? Is that really the position that you want to put out there? Because I feel like that just makes your God weak and vindictive and kind of a shitbag.
There's a reason for everything and hope for the future. Of course, sometimes the deepest threats to our faith are not from outsiders, but are actually in the room with us.
The deep state! He's mentioning the deep state, honey. See, he said he's describing the deep state without saying deep state. It's the deep state. Y'all, it's the deep state that's really the ones that are turning Christians away from Christianity. They're telling people that, oh, this life doesn't matter, but at the same time it does matter, so suck Jesus' dick.
We may have a handle on these 5 philosophies of our day, but what are we doing about the problems within our churches?
Oh, you mean like priest fucking small children? Could you be talking about that? Like, if you're talking about that, I totally agree. The insider threat from priests fucking small children in the Catholic Church, I feel like is a pretty big thing, and that you should probably focus on the next 50 to 100 100,000 years of you not fucking children that, might bring you out of this whole, facade of not fucking children. It will make you actually not fucking children by like not fucking children for the rest of time. Like, I feel like that would very easily help your case here. At the same time, if you're not talking about the insider threat of priests fucking children in your own organization, then maybe you need to, reconsider what you're considering, the insider threat here. Because I feel like you're just saying, oh, these are Christians that deviate away from the Catholic message or from the Christian message, and they are the ones that are the problems. It's like, no, it's Pastor McFeely trying to stick his wheelie into fucking Tommy in the rectory. That's the problem with your organization.
If you're interested in a video that holds up a mirror to Christianity and calls us to conversion, check out this video next.
All in all, I feel like Friar Tuck here did not convince me that these are 5 reasons why either atheists exist or that these are bad reasons. I found that a lot of them are kind of strawman in the way he presents them, but I do feel like the main takeaway is that the lack of evidence for God, specifically the lack of evidence for Christianity, is why people are turned away from being Christian. And that is what should be focused on rather than all of the bullshit that he was spouting tonight. He was also very confusing in his messaging because he seemed to say one thing at the very beginning of the video and then totally reverse it at the end of the video when he was wanting to complain about atheists again. I'm just very confused by the video in general. If you will, please go down below and let me know what you thought about his video. Let me know if you thought that it made sense, or if you thought that he was kind of strawmanning the atheist community, or if you thought that he was kind of talking out of both sides of his mouth at times. Let me know down below in the comments. And while you're down there, why don't you smash that like button and subscribe if you like this kind of content. Don't forget to stand up and use your voice. Bye, heathens.